Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli, the computer guy, here for the Daily Blob, and I want to make sure you fully understand. This video today is not about layoffs. We are not talking about 4,000 layoffs at Salesforce. We are simply talking about 4,000 roles being cut. That is not the same thing, and you should not conflate the two. Salesforce is not doing layoffs, they're cutting roles. Anyways, I love the words. I love the words that executives use when the world is going to hell. When the world is going to hell, and they can't admit the world is going to hell, they become ever more creative with their vocabulary. That might be the idea for your next multi-million-dollar company. What if you started doing like Shakespearean prose for tech executives during Black Swan events? Dear tech executives, are you going through a Black Swan event? Come to our Shakespearean prose boot camp so you too can learn how to twist the usage of words so people start thinking the words you use are not actually the words you use. That, my friends, is how you make money during whatever the hell is currently going on economically. So anyways, I think this is kind of interesting here. Mark Beinoff, Salesforce, has cut 4,000 roles in support because of AI agents. And I think this is a big thing. Again, I don't think it's AI agent. I think, look, LLMs, all these models, improve automation. Right? What are we really talking about here? And that's what I try to do. What I try to do in these videos, between all the screaming, I try to explain what we're actually talking about. What we're actually talking about is automation routines, right? And so basically with LLMs support automation routines, both for language processing. So when somebody communicates to your automation system, trying to figure out what the hell they're actually asking for, right? That's something that an LLM can do. And then once you pull data out of your systems, turning that data into something that's human readable, that's another useful thing that LLMs can do. But one of the things that I found interesting, really over the past 15 years, is how automation of all things really hasn't kept up in the corporate world, right? I've talked about this before with the Sheets. So there's a gas station I absolutely love called Sheets. Man, 20 years ago, I think 20 years ago, they put in their touch screen. So when you want to order something, you just go up to one of their touch screens in the gas station and you plug all the information in and you get your food. And this was 20 years ago. They were literally one of the first companies to actually put in one of these systems. And it makes sense, right? It wasn't fucking cutting edge. Basically, you've got a monitor with a touch screen on it. Essentially, the back end of it, all it is essentially is a web page that connects to a database. Right? Even 20 years ago, the shit wasn't complicated. It might be a little bit more expensive than it is today, but it wasn't complicated. But the curious thing was, right, Sheets rolled it out, and then it was very slowly rolled out into so many other places, right? So then you start seeing Southwest use kiosks, and now a lot of airlines use kiosks, more and more restaurants use kiosks, and I find it to be a more effective way of actually buying or interacting with a lot of things, right? You just get to click on what you want and away you go. Swipe your credit card, right? But it's interesting. It's interesting how long it took for that kind of user interface to really become normalized. And that's one of the curious things, like when we look at a lot of the systems that companies have, how few of the systems really are automated in any kind of fashion, and the optimization for those systems is relatively low. And I think one of the curious things that we're getting to right now when we start talking about artificial intelligence is I think kind of AI is the COVID event for QR codes. I talk about this in the United States. I don't know about Europeans. Every time I talk about this, like Europeans start screaming for some reason. I don't get whatever. Anyways, QR codes, right? QR codes been around forever, not complicated, right? Two-dimensional basically barcode. Anyways, we had QR codes. I remember the first time I was shown a QR code, it was probably 2011 or whatever, right? And didn't care for like 10 years. For whatever reason, COVID happens, we start going to touchless menus and that type of thing. People are like, how do we do this? So they start putting QR codes on everything. And it was weird, right? You had this solid, pretty whatever technology. Again, this is not cutting edge technology by any stretch of the imagination. Solid, it works, the whole 9 yards. In the United States, nobody gives a crap about it for 10 years. You have a black swan event happen, you have COVID happen, and then all of a sudden everybody's using QR codes. And now it's 2025 and QR codes are completely normalized, right? It's that weird, it's a weird thing, that just happens. And I think that's basically what we're getting to with artificial intelligence is like automation, right? Automation systems are pretty solid, right? All you need is the interface, whatever interface you're going to be using. You need the back end, the database solution. You need some intelligence back then, some processing, and it's all relatively simple. IVR systems, right? So I used to install telephone systems, right? I have 100 hours of Definity, via Definity administrator training back from like 2000 whatever era. What's interesting is, so you have a telephone system, and that's just a telephone system, and then you can add what's called an auto attendant. And an auto attendant is, press 1 for sales, press 2 for service or whatever else. That's an auto attendant, been around forever. Then you have IVRs, and IVRs, I could have sold IVRs. I didn't sell IVRs because nobody actually wanted them back in the day, but I could have sold IVRs 18 years ago, 16, 17, 18 years ago, and they're interactive voice response systems. So that's basically when you call in to a place and it says, who are you looking to talk to? And you say sales, or you just say service or whatever. The important thing to understand is this technology was commoditized to the degree I could have sold it to 10-person offices if they wanted to buy it for a relatively low price. Even, again, 16, 17, 18 years ago, $5,000 probably would have installed one of these systems. And so what's kind of curious to see is you think about automation, you think about how things have progressed over the past 20 years, and the fact that it seems like the automation systems just really have not kept up for whatever reason. But there's this impetus, right? There's this thing, now that we have AI, right? Having a web form that connects into a database, and then you have some intelligence. Basically, you have some processing, some if-else statements on the back end, right? That's boring. Nobody wants to invest in that. But if you have the exact same thing, but you slap llama on the front of it and llama on the back of it, all of a sudden you have an AI system, and there's millions and millions and millions of dollars for your department. And I think that's the curious thing that I think with AI. AI is the straw that broke the camel's back on automation. And the question then becomes is what happens as we push forward harder with automation? And apparently, for Mark Beinoff, what happens is we start firing a crap ton of people. A crap ton of people. Eli, how do I get a job? Well, you go behind the 7-Eleven. Spread your butt cheeks apart and see what people are willing to pay. I don't know what to tell you people anymore. Like that's the weird part, right? We are literally at a time period where CEOs are excited to eliminate employees. And you really have to understand this, right? We talk about psychology and we talk about intent. What is the intent with an interaction? Intents with the interaction before, we're hiring people. We want to hire people to prove how successful we are, right? So people got hired. A lot of morons got hired. A lot of blue hairs that still don't quite understand what the fuck a function call is, they got hired for tech roles. Anyways, I'm not gonna go into something. Got into an argument, did not mean to get into an argument with that Meta employee. It was not supposed to be an argument with that Meta employee. They were just so dumb. Oh, they work for Meta. Anyways, right? But it was all about hiring. It was all about hiring, right? The intent was to prove how successful these CEOs were by having their harem of employees. Now things have changed. And so the intent is to eliminate employees, become lean. So now CEOs are literally excited to eliminate employees. And this is just the world we're in. This is just the world where I do not know what to tell you people, other than solve problems and be nice to your boss. Let's see here. AI agents are making a major dent in Salesforce's headcount. In an episode of the Logan Bartlett Show released on Friday, Salesforce CEO Mark Beinoff said AI agents in the customer support division were replacing humans, helping the company work through more sales leads. It's, quote, "It's been 8 of the most exciting months of my career." That's right. That's right. Eliminating thousands of employees are some of the most exciting times of his career. Quote, "I was able to rebalance," notice words, notice the Shakespearean prose going on. "I was able to rebalance my headcount on my support." He said, quote, "I've reduced it from 9,000 heads to about 5,000 because I need less heads." I need less heads. The company employs 76,453 employees across divisions as of January. Quote, "At the start of this year, we deployed help.agentforce.com. Because of the benefit and efficiencies of Agentforce, we've seen the number of support cases we handle decline, and we no longer need to actively backfill support engineer roles. We've successfully redeployed hundreds of employees into other areas like professional services, sales, and customer success," a Salesforce spokesperson said in a statement to Business Insider. So notice how that math doesn't really math. Notice what they're doing there. Oh, since help.agentforce.com is working so well, we've moved employees into other roles. Well, Eli, why are you being snarky? They just deployed a technology and they've moved employees into other roles. That's how businesses roll. Yeah, but you'll notice, Beinoff stated they went from 9,000 employees to 5,000 employees. So they eliminated 4,000 heads. 4,000 heads. And then basically what they did is they redeployed hundreds of employees, heads, into other positions. So thousands of roles get eliminated. Hundreds of employees get put into other positions. Right? Quote, "There were more than 100 million leads that we have not called back at Salesforce in the last 26 years because we have not had enough people," he said. Quote, "But we now have an agentic sales that is calling back every person that contacts us." Beinoff, who co-founded Salesforce in 1999, said, quote, "An omni-channel supervisor helps human and AI agents collaborate with customers." He said 50% of conversations are being done by AI and 50% by humans, which wasn't the case last year. Beinoff said working together is important because AI agents can realize that they can't handle a task and need human support. AI agents don't realize shit. I just want to put that out there. Notice how they use all these words to make AI seem intelligent. It doesn't realize. It hallucinates. It doesn't realize. No, it just comes to an error and then it spits it out to a human being. That's how this kind of stuff works. But look at the workflow here. And again, that's one of the things that I find interesting with this. So many times when we think about workflows, right? It's either automated workflow or it's human-centric workflow. What's kind of curious about this, and this is one of those things to be thinking about, is how can you create workflows that both have automated components and human components that can interact relatively seamlessly. And this is one of the things you need to be thinking about as a technology professional working for your company. Is how can you start creating the systems and how can you start building the infrastructure so these kind of solutions can be deployed going into the future, right? We talk about that. So we talk about architecture, right? So there's client-server architecture. You have a server and you have a client computer. Client computer asks for resources from the server and they get it, right? Then we talk about service-oriented architecture. Service-oriented architecture is APIs. And so basically APIs is Twilio, is SendGrid, is other things. Basically, you're asking for services from a vendor over the internet, and they're providing you the resources back. Well, you get to microservices architecture. Microservices architecture is where you take that service-oriented architecture approach and you actually bring that in-house. What if instead of having a server, right, an email server or a SMS server, whatever, server on your premises, what if you think about it more as a service, right? This is an email service. This is a messaging service. This is a database service. So basically, you have the back-end solution, whatever that back-end solution is, but then the people within your organization, in order to connect to that server, they have to go through essentially an API call so that very specific things are able to happen. So one of the things to be thinking about now, like as a technology professional, is most likely in this AI, automation, whatever centric world, a services architecture is going to perform better and be more upgradable, modifiable, scalable, whatever else going into the future than kind of like this client service architecture that you had in the past. And so one of the things I started thinking about is how can you start designing your internal infrastructure? How can you create that architecture so that these AI systems and human systems can start communicating and be able to access resources easier than they can in the past? I think that's one of the interesting things to be thinking about. And that's what you need to be thinking about as a technology professional. Again, that's why I don't give a fuck about vibe coding, right? Everybody's like, vibe coding is gonna destroy the tech industry. All the tech professionals are gonna be fired. No, the fucking node developers are gonna get fired. And I will not shed a tear. I refuse to shed a tear over a node developer getting fired. I'm sorry. You choose to be a node developer. We are not born to the programming languages we support. We decide. You decide to code Node. Anyways, right? But that's the thing, right? That tech stack fucking comes and goes. Do you remember Perl? Somebody brought up Perl the other day. I was like, I remember Perl. Do you remember Visual Basic Script, VBS? That was fucking awesome. Anyways, right? Nobody gives a fuck about Perl anymore. Nobody gives a fuck about VBS anymore. Nobody cares about a lot of it, right? I got my MCSE in NT 4.0. If you saw an NT server, you'd have a goddamn heart attack. Hey, we gotta do updates on this NT server. Oh, okay. So what do you want to have for lunch? We're gonna drive 30 minutes to the restaurant. We're gonna have, a couple of beers over lunch because we don't have to get back anyway. Oh, we're gonna drive half an hour back, and maybe the server will be up and running again. Anyways, right? This is a stack. That's the technology. Nobody gives a fuck about NT or 2000 or XP or Christ, Vista or 7. Been doing this for a while, right? The important thing is being a technology professional. It's not that. It's not the technology itself. Unless you're a COBOL programmer, you're good for life. Anybody else, right? It's not about that. It's about how can you support your company? How can you add, basically, how can you add to the decision processes for how you're going to be future-proofing your systems? When you go out there to buy servers, when you go out there to buy solutions, how can you look at the products that you're going to be buying and make decisions so that those systems are still relevant and still, give good efficiency and all that kind of stuff 5 or 10 years from now, right? That is what makes you a technology professional. If you look at Claude Code and you think you have to get out of the tech industry because it's going to do all your coding, get the fuck out of the tech industry. You're not a real technology professional. If you look at Claude Code and you start thinking, okay, well, because think about this, right? If our developers are going to start using Claude Code, they're still going to need to connect to database systems. They're still going to need to connect to storage arrays or systems. They're still going to need to get compute. Maybe it's CPU utilization, maybe it's GPU utilization, that type of thing. Okay, how can we start designing these infrastructure components now to make it easier, more secure, more robust when people are vibe coding to interact with those systems? Right? If you see vibe coding and you think, oh no, the programming jobs are gonna go away, I should do something else, get the fuck out of this career. If you look at vibe coding and you're like, oh, okay, So this is what we need to think about with databases. Okay, so how do we need to create a robust storage system with full-fledged disaster recovery for storage of data? How are we going to deal with sites and replication and that kind of thing, right? That's what technology professionals do. And so that's where you hear about agents, right? You hear about these agents. The thing to be considering is, okay, it's like, how do you actually build agentic systems from the ground up? How do you create these systems all the way from the user interacting with them, for them to be able to push and pull and deal with whatever the data, to being able to put out the actual results that the company needs, but then also, how do you report on those results? How do you create a single pane of glass so different managers have an idea of the effectiveness of the AI systems? I think about this right now with, I went to an event here in Asheville a couple of days ago, and it was fascinating, right? This guy had spent thousands of dollars using N8N to come up with his agentic system for posting to social media, right? So he's a startup company. He feels that social media advertising, whatever, he has to do it for some reason. So anyways, they came up with this like agentic system it's kind of cool. Like technically it's cool. Technically it's cool. Functionally it's stupid. Technically it's cool. So what it does is it goes out and it scrapes the web for current news events that has something to do with his startup. It also scrapes the web for anybody who actually talks about his startup. It then uses AI to craft posts. So craft a Facebook post or craft a LinkedIn post or whatever, right? And then it uses AI to create an image that goes along with that post. And then it basically dumps that information into an Airtables database and allows him, it shows what posts have been created by AI. It allows him to see those posts, to see the drafts of those posts. If he likes it, he can approve it. If he wants to tweak it, he can edit it. Or if he dislikes it, he can disapprove it. If he approves it, or once he approves it, that will then go into a queue, and then there's an API system that basically runs through a scheduled time for posting, and will post all that stuff to social media. Like, wow, that's kind of cool. Eli, how can you be snarky at that, right? You're scraping the web using AI. You're creating posts using AI. You're creating images using AI. You're giving a database, solution so that you can approve what AI is creating. Eli, how can you possibly be snarky at that? Because he has no way to track performance. He went through all of it. He went through all of this. Paid money, the whole 9 yards, talking about how this is saving like 800 hours of social media marketing time per month or whatever, and he has no way to track the performance of it. So he's posting a shit ton of AI slop to social media, and doesn't have to be concerned with the fact that nobody gives a fuck. Right? But anyways, these are the things to be thinking about. We hear about AI, like one of the considerations is even if the system does exactly what it's supposed to do. What his system does is fucking cool. Technologically fucking cool. Business-wise, fucking stupid. Why? Because there is no final component to give that single pane of glass so that you understand the results of what the AI is providing for your company or organization. And this is where there's going to be a lot of value going into the future. Right? Anyways, quote, it's not any different than if you're in a Tesla and all of a sudden it's self-driving and goes, oh, I don't actually know what's happening. You take over. And that's kind of the same thing Beinhoff said. So basically the automation is going through, doing its deal. When it fails out for whatever reason, it hands it over to a representative. The representative gets it through that particular, the bumps in the road, then it hands it back off to the automation, and away you go. You're able to increase, efficiency and that type of thing, and eliminate 4,000 employees. Eliminate 4,000 heads. 4,000 heads. So anyways, I think this is kind of interesting. It's going to be curious to see how this goes in the future. As I've said, I dislike the whole thing with AI just because it's not It's not quite right. Artificial intelligence is part of these systems. Don't get me wrong. LLMs and all that are part of the systems. But so much of this is automation. So I honestly believe, in my heart of hearts, you know, swear to the spaghetti monster, I believe probably 90% a lot of these solutions could have been implemented probably 10 years ago. With the technology that was available, it simply wasn't implemented because, for whatever reason, there wasn't that internal push. Right? Why are you going to massively increase efficiency at your technology company if the goal is to increase headcount? Right? I think we've now just come to the point where the goal, right, what is exciting to these CEOs is to eliminate employees. And so now they're adding automation. And as they add automation, they slap some of this artificial intelligence horse crap on top of it to make it seem like, they're at the forefront. So basically, instead of admitting that they're a decade behind the times, by whitewashing this with artificial intelligence, it makes it seem like they're ahead of the curve. And I think that's basically what's going on. And so that's where it'll be curious to see what happens going forward with artificial intelligence. Like, that's one of the worries that I have with a lot of these tech companies, especially for a lot of you folks out there that want jobs, right? I know I get snarky and I get mean. I just get mean because it just gets tiring. But like, I was in Miami. A number of months ago. Anyways, I went to a meetup and I was just sitting there listening to people. And the curious thing is these two people were talking about why managers disliked remote work. And the guy brought up the concept. He said, yeah, well, I think most managers dislike remote work because they have no idea what their KPIs are. So KPIs are key performance indicators. So basically, the idea is a KPI is essentially what is it that you get paid for? Right? Why do we hire you? How many do you write a certain number of lines of code in a week? Do you bring a certain amount of money to the company? Do you close tickets? It's a nice thing back when you were doing tech support, like good old-fashioned tech support. Is KPIs for us were relatively easy because we had ticket systems. Right? The end user submitted their ticket, and then there's a ticket, right? So that's a point that you can track, and then depending on like the difficulty of the ticket or the particular systems that the ticket dealt with, you could tweak the points there to put it up or down, right? So, whatever. So, so if I have a ticket that comes in and somebody needs to change their homepage, right, the point value of that might be pretty low. If a ticket that comes in and I need to wipe and reload and I need to save the data and replace the data and all that kind of thing, the point value might be higher, right? Change a homepage, let's say, is a point value of 1, and wipe and reload with everything else is a point value of 20. Let's just say something along those lines. Anyways, the good thing about that type of thing is, as long as you set up the systems, it's relatively easy to track the efficiency of your employees, right? How many points are your employees getting? This is your top employee, this is your middle employee, this is your crap employee, and you can determine, right? You have those KPIs there. The thing is, with this modern world, especially like with coding, is like what is the KPI, right? When Elon Musk comes in and says, I want to see how many lines of code you wrote this week. There is a real question there of what the fuck does that actually mean? Like, is lines of code what you're really looking for? Like so for me, right? I always talk about finding problems and solving the problems. So if you're an employee like me, I might be taking most of my time with auditing, right? Most of my time. If you hire me, don't hire me. Don't fucking hire. I don't want to be hired. I will cost you 1 penny more than you're willing to pay my ass. Anyways, but if you're going to hire me, right, I'm going to be the type of person that's talking to everybody. Not really talking to people, asking questions and listening. I'm going to ask the CEO questions and listen. I'm going to ask the secretaries and listen. I'm going to ask the warehouse workers and listen. I'm then going to go in and I'm going to audit the systems. Okay, with the problems that I've heard, where do I think that there might be bottlenecks? Now let me go in and start looking at the logs and start looking at the activity monitors and start looking at everything else to see where numbers don't look quite right. And then after I've done all of that, then I'll sit there and I'll write 3 lines of code, or I'll change 1 or 2 configurations, right? So Elon Musk would fire my ass in a fucking heartbeat. right? You don't do any work. If you don't want to work for this company, we shouldn't pay you. I was like, motherfucker. I've simply spent all of my time doing things that you do not have a system to record. So one of the concerns, like that's the whole thing what this person was saying with remote work and return to office, is that managers want people to return to the office so that they feel like they're actual managers, right? If I walk behind you in the cube farm, I feel like I'm doing my job. Right? I don't understand my KPIs better than I did when you were working from home, but I feel like I'm doing my job. One of the concerns that comes up for me that I feel like a lot of these employees don't quite grasp, I talk about KPIs, is these companies are going to start realizing how important KPIs are, right? KPIs were a big deal. They were. Remember back when our profession made half an ounce of sense? I remember when our profession made half an ounce of sense. KPIs used to matter, right? So you had a department within your organization. They figured out what the fuck that department, what was the output that that department was supposed to provide. You figured out generally what the employees in that department were supposed to provide. And then you had those KPIs. Again, for somebody like me, it was a ticketing system, dealing with a ticketing system. If you had customer service reps, it was how many calls, they took per hour, that type of thing. If you had salespeople, it was how many sales they had, right? All of this is just kind of vaporized over the past 10 years, right? With 1% interest rates, with the value of money being so low, so much money was getting dumped in these companies. And so as they grew, not only did they fuck up company culture, not only did they hire just a tremendous number of blue hairs that don't actually give a damn about solving people's problems, right? But things like KPIs went out the window. Here's the deal, right? If you're a blue hair, if you are a dyed in the wool blue hair, but you hit all your numbers, the fuck do I care? You're hitting your numbers. You're doing your job. Anyways, the problem we have is all these people were hired at the exact same times these companies were destroying their company cultures. They also were losing track of their KPIs. What are the key performance indicators for these employees that you're hiring? And there wasn't really a KPI. Well, there was one KPI. Did they have an ass and was it in a seat? Eli, what are you talking about? We know our KPIs. See, look, we have 100 asses in seats. We're doing very well today. Fuck. The curious thing, right? And this is where you have to think about all this organizational stuff, right? As revenue and profit is now important across the board, more and more of these companies are going to start going back to a KPI-centric world. Anything that can be tracked is going to be tracked. They are going to look at those metrics. They're going to have dashboards, and they're going to more and more understand who the productive employees are and who the unproductive employees are, so that they can try to eliminate, more unproductive than productive. But on top of that, right, in this modern world of 2025, as they go in and they start analyzing those KPIs, what they're also going to start to realize is, I bet we can create an agent for that, right? So maybe it's like routing, optimizing, routing for sales calls or whatever else, right? The idea of instead of having a receptionist route the call, right? That's an employee. Can we start to have an agent route the call? Now that we have LLMs, right? LLMs might be able to suss out more information. So there's something called not hunt groups. Well, yeah, I guess it would be a hunt group. When you're dealing with telephone systems, there's something called hunt groups. And that's when you call sales. When you call sales, we call service or whatever else. That can actually go to multiple telephones, right? So you can have multiple telephones in a hunt group. So let's say a sales department. So let's say you have a television division and you have a computer division and you have a washing machine division, right? So somebody is trying to buy a television. So you have television salespeople. Let's say you have 10 television salespeople. So when they call in and they want to buy a television, right, there's something called a hunt group. And what the hunt group does is it's going to have a group of these phone numbers there. And then basically anybody who's already on a call, it's not going to try to route to that because it doesn't want to put it into voicemail. And then there can be other intelligence there too to say, okay, we're going to route to the last person that was taking a call, or the person who had the call the furthest back, right? And so that's basically a hunt group is where you're able to route. So I click on buy a TV, it goes to the television sales hunt group. Anybody who's currently on the phone is not going to go to their telephone number, and then based off of other intelligence things, right? Well, it becomes interesting with these AI systems, and also how we can make telephone systems, communication systems more complicated now, is the whole idea is, what if we have like hyper intelligent hunt groups? And so what I mean by that is, let's say you call in, right? So you call into the telephone number, you have an IVR, essentially you have an IVR, integrated a voice response system, and it says, hello, how can I am Bob, how can I help you today? What is your problem today? Now imagine this, right? Somebody says, well, I'd really like to buy a washing machine and whatever else. Well, imagine the LLM. The LLM can then process that. And the LLM can try to pull out what are the relevant things that you're actually interested in. And then with that, it then can try to direct you to the most appropriate phone number, right? So let's say we have washing machines. And so there's Samsung washing machines, there's Whirlpool washing machines, and there's some Chinese washing machine. Right? And so imagine the person calls in. So you have a washing machine sales hunt group. So if somebody comes in and they want a washing machine, anybody in that hunt group is going to be wrong, right? Depending on the rules. Now, what if he says, hey, yes, I would like to buy a Whirlpool washing machine. Now, within that hunt group, within that group of salespeople for washing machines, a few are going to be specialists on Whirlpool washing machines. So why do you want a phone call routed to the person who knows a lot about LG washing machines, or a lot about Samsung washing machines, or a lot about the Chinese washing machines? I don't want a Chinese washing machine. I want a Whirlpool washing machine. And we're all going to pretend that it's not actually a Chinese washing machine with a Whirlpool symbol on it. Anyways, right? So, yes, I'm very interested today in buying a Whirlpool washing machine, right? So the LLM can go through, it can pull out Whirlpool, it can call out washing machine, it can then look through basically the record, the information for anybody in the company within the telephone system to say, okay, this person specializes in Whirlpool washing machines, and they are currently, right, and it comes back, let's say, with a select statement. So these three people are experts on Whirlpool washing machines. This person has not logged into the office today, so don't send a call there because they're not in the office. This person is currently on a phone call, so don't send a phone call there because they're already on the phone call. This person is available, automatically route there, right? And so I think what's going to become very interesting is this whole idea is, as companies start hyper focusing on KPIs, they're going to start realizing how many job functions, not entire jobs, but job functions, can be handed over to automated systems, whether or not they're AI or whatever. And I think that is going to do a lot to eliminate employees and create efficiencies and that type of thing. And I think that's the kind of thing to be considering, right? Again, if you're a technology professional, I think about this with that. With that person that I saw with the N8N, right? So I went to that event. They were using N8N in order to post a lot of AI slop to social media. Here's the thing. They had already paid their AI consultant thousands of dollars to create the workflow for that AI slop. So therefore, supposedly, hundreds of hours of AI or of social media advertising had been saved from a human. A human did not have to get paid to put out that slop. So a human theoretically lost a job, maybe, but somebody who actually builds AI workflows was able to make thousands of dollars. And that I think is going to be the big thing. And that's why, I get snarky about this. I just get fucking tired of it. This is why it's so fucking important. Treat your boss like they're a fucking human being. Be nice to your boss. Understand what your company does. Understand what the current concerns are, right? 5 years ago, the concern was, how do we make ourselves look successful so that we can get investment money? Now it's, how can we look like we're going lean so we can get investment money, right? You need to look at that. You need to talk with your boss. You need to then go out and figure out what solutions empower your boss. I think about this with one of the clients that I had. So one of the clients, they just fucking bought everything. They bought surveillance systems for me and telephone systems for me and digital signage for me and the whole 9 yards. Anyways, I was talking to the boss of the executive's kid one day. And he was like, man, my dad loves you. And I was like, well, I mean, I do love your dad's money. I'm not sure I go that far with the whole love thing. I was like, really? Like, why? I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I was a consultant or whatever, but I was like, why? And he said, you know, my dad, he honestly thinks if he asked you to install warp engines on this building, that you would come back with a proposal the next day on how to install warp engines on the building. And I was like, yeah, fair enough. And you know the weird thing? Even with consultants, like employees are fun to laugh at. Fuck employees. They're just fun to screw with. But here's the weird thing, even with consultants, you don't know how many consultants that I saw where the money was on the table. The customer was like, this is what I want. All you need to do is come back with a proposal. I'll sign the fucking proposal. And then like the consultants wouldn't come back with proposals, right? It's like wackadoodle. So anyways, I think this is one of those big things to consider, is stop focusing on the death of Node. Stop focusing on the death of Node. Nobody's gonna cry when Node goes away. When Node goes away and Node developers go away, we all gonna celebrate. Yes, thank God, it's done. The age of Node is over. Stop worrying so much about fucking Node all the time. And start looking at the whole solving problems and using systems to solve problems. Because there are people out there making a lot of money deploying really crappy, kind of stupid AI solutions. And anyways, and that's what pays the rent. So yeah, what do you think about this with Mark Binoff stating that he's been able to cut 4,000 roles because of AI agents? What do you think about integrating AI agents or systems, basically systems, with humans, so that they can trade off the different workloads? What do you think about the rise of KPIs or the re-rise of KPIs? What happens in 2025 when executives remember what the fuck a KPI actually is, and then they start looking at essentially what are the actual expectations of the employees, and then they start having their CIOs go, you know, we can automate that, and we can automate that. I'm pretty sure we can automate that. Is the danger to your career AI, or is it danger to your career KPI? That's a question. That's a question. Put your thoughts down below. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a thumbs down. Say I'm amazing. Say I'm a moron. Just say it down below. Do not walk away and scream at nothing about what a moron I am. If you're going to call me a moron, be a real alpha Chad and do it down in the comment section. Come on now, people. That's how social media works nowadays. Anyways, with that, see y'all later.